Hey there, so in this video we'll start focusing on API to kickstart training the project. Okay, that is, if you go to our website, okay, so going to website and clicking on the start training, we should trigger an API to kickstart the training for this respective project. So that API we're going to configure and use that API and check this functionality. Okay, so let's head back to code base. Okay, for that I'm going to create an API inside this project's id section called train.ts. okay, so let me create a file called train.ts. okay, and then we will write in handler and connect to replicate client API and start training. Okay, so let's name the handler name as handler, and here pass the request object, that is next API request, and then response parameter. So this is of type next API response. Okay, and then so from query parameter we'll take the project ID, so that is const project ID request dot query dot id as string. Okay, and we will take the session object and check if the session is in session user object is not null. If it is null, we will say it is not that authenticated. Okay, so const session await get session. Okay, and pass in the request parameter, and here check for if the session is not having the user property, then we will return saying that you are not that authenticated. So for that the status code we'll be sending is the 401, so that is response.status 401, and then JSON. Okay, and here the message property, and the message that will be configuring is not authenticated. Okay, fine. So if not, okay, then we will first get the project details by connecting to the project table. So db, so here let's import the db. Okay, import db. Okay, and make call to project table. Okay, and pass in the params here, that is the id is a project id, and then user id using the session object, that is session dot user id, and then the model status. So model status should be not created. Okay, and then stripe payment id should not be null. Okay, that is stripe payment id is not null. Okay, fine. So this would give us the project details. Okay, after this we are going to get the instance class. Okay, so that is by making use of the util function which we have written, that is get refined instance class. Okay, we have not written that. So for this I'm going to create one util function. Okay, so going to our utils function, inside the utils folder I'm going to create a new file called prediction.ts, and in that I'm creating a util function called get refined instance class. Okay, so new file, and let's create the file name as predictions.ts. okay, and in this let's create that, so that is get refined instance class. Okay, and here instance class as a input parameter which is of type string. Okay, so this is of type string, so return instance class if this is equals to man, or instance class is equals to woman as a person, or else we will just return this as instance class. Okay, So that is, if the input param that we are receiving for this function is equals to man or woman, we will return the value as a person, or else the whatever the value is there in instance class. Okay, so going back to our train.ts file, so let's import that. So yep, so get instance class. Okay, and here the input param that will be passing is the project dot instance class. Okay, fine. Now here we will make use of that replicate client and make a post call to trainings endpoint which that has exposed. Okay, and store the result in a variable called response replicate. Okay, so that is response replicate, and here let's import that replicate client. Okay, and make a post call. Okay, and here the endpoint is version 1 slash trainings. Okay, and for this the params that will be passing input params, okay, is this instance prompt. So instance prompt is nothing but a photo of, okay, a the replicate instance token and the instance class. Okay, so process dot env dot next public replicate instance token and the instance class which we have just created above. Okay, so after this the class prompt. Okay, so here the class prompt is a photo of the above instance class variable. Fine, then after this instance data, so this would be the zip folder which we have uploaded to our S3 bucket. Okay, so that URL has to be passed here, that is https. Okay, and make use of that our bucket name, so process dot env dot s3 upload bucket, and pass in that URL Amazon AWS .com. Okay, and the ID and then the extension which is the zip. Okay, fine, so that is the data URL of our S3 bucket, and then the max train steps. Okay, so here this again we have defined as environment variable, so that is again number process dot env dot replicate max train steps. Okay, that is the variable which I have configured. Okay, so you can define the number of how many steps you wanted to, and then the class images, and see see the parameters that has to be passed to this version 1 trainings EPA of replicate. You can refer to their documentation section, so each details usage is purpose of them is mentioned why it's needed. Okay, so then the clear idea will be so that it will be clear for you why we are passing these parameters. Okay, and learning rate, let's give is 10 power minus 6. Okay, yep, yeah, so this is the input thing, and then the model name. Okay, here that is make use of that our replicate username and the project ID. Okay, so project dot id, so this would be our model name. Okay, and then this is a webhook completed. So here we have to pass in the URL which lets us know the status of the model training. Okay, so because it takes a lot of time, so we'll have to be informed of the status of the model. So this webhook completed URL will do that job. Okay, so env dot no, next dot URL slash API slash webhooks slash completed. Okay, so then after this, for this we have to pass in the headers. So that is the authorization headers. Okay, so let's authorization, and here pass in our replicate API token. Okay, and then the content type. So content type is of application slash JSON. Okay, yeah. Then after this, we are going to collect the replicate model ID. So in this way, so let's name the variable name as replicate model ID, and response replicate dot data dot id as string. Okay, and then we are going to update our project the status. Okay, that is we are going to update the replicate model ID and also the model status. Okay, so that is await db dot project dot update, and get the respective project detail. Okay, that is project dot id, and then the data. So here first thing we are going to update is replicate model ID. So pass in the model ID, and then the model status. So model status we will set to it as processing. Okay, so this is going to update, and finally we are going to return the project object in the form of a JSON response. So here pass in the project JSON project. Okay, and finally export our handler default handler. Okay, so now the API needed in order to start training is created. So we'll go to the project card section, and here we'll configure the details to hit that API. Okay, so let me create that. Okay, here, so let's make use of the use mutation hook from React query. So first mutate, let's name the this function name as a train model. Okay, and he's loading, so let's rename this to is model loading. Okay, and then is success variable, and finally use the use mutation hook, and here give the id for this as a train model, and using the project id, that is project dot id. Okay, and here for this input param would be of type of project. So that is the project we are passing, so that would be the input param for this function. Okay, and then invoke that API which we have just created, which is of type of post. Okay, so let me import the Axios client. So import Axios. Okay, and here the endpoint is API slash projects slash project dot id. Okay, and then train. Okay, this is the endpoint. Okay, so for this this is the input param. Okay, prompt. Okay, fine. Then after this callback function. So on success I'm going to call this handle refresh projects callback function. Okay, so yeah, so this is it. Okay, now heading back to the start training button. So here we have to invoke the function which we have just created. So that is okay, so train model and pass in our project object. So ideally this should kickstart the project. Okay, so just a second, so I'll get back to a browser and I'll head back to the browser and then see if the functionality is working as expected or not. So going back to our browser, so now see, so it's refreshed. Okay, now if you click on this start training, the db update and calling to that API whichever we configured should trigger. So clicking on this, so if we inspect, okay, let me click on this. Okay, there is an issue. Okay, not authenticated. Fine, there is an issue with not authenticated, so let me, okay, fine, so let's log in again. So ideally after logging in here, the options we show in navigation should be changed. We will configure eventually. Okay, so first let me sign in again, and now I'll go to the network section. Okay, and start, click on this. Okay, still there is issue with not authenticated. So for now what we'll do, I will just okay, so for now I am not going to check this one. So you need user ID. So what I'll do, I'll just take the user ID from our DB. Okay, so let's go back to DB. Okay, so going to this one, so I'm going to copy this and configure for this user ID. Okay, okay, so now let's head back and check if, so let me clear this, and also yep, let's, yeah, so if you see this studio is creating and the API was successful. Okay, so and if you go and check our DB, the status, so if I refresh this, the status was so now the replicate model ID is created, and also the status should be changed to the queued. Okay, so this will be reflected via webhook. So if I go to the that replicate website as well, so you should be seeing, so if I refresh this, so you see this is the just the model is created and it's running. Okay, so this will take some time. Okay, after this it is going to reflect back towards the status of our model. Okay, so going back to our page, so I'm just, so now the studio is creating the custom model based on your upload status. It might take 20 minutes. Okay, this is coming from so if you see the project card section, so here you see yep, so here the is training variable became true, and then the text here is being shown. So is training will be true when if the model status is any of this. For now, if you see the DB, the status was queued. Okay, so if it is any of this, training would be true, and then the this would be the text that will be showcasing on screen. So now going back, so it's the training. So if you see the same here, and if you want to see more info, we can view the logs thing as well. So this is how the model will be training and going to create all checkpoints and all the weights needed for our images and all. Okay, so this is how the training happens. So now heading back, so let's wait. So it's going to take time, but no problem, I'm going to show to you guys. Okay, so you see here, so 20%, 26% is done. So you see here the params whatever we passed in that input and input param, so the class prompt and also the learning rate and the instance prompt whatever we provided, and max train steps, number of class images, this has been passed as the input params here. So if you see in our API train.ts, okay, this is that instance prompt, class prompt, instance data, max train steps, learning rate and class images, so that you can see the reflection here. Okay, so that is what it is running now. So as of now 34% is completed. So as mentioned, it will take approximately 20 minutes. So I'll not be talking, you just have a look at the progress that we are making while training our project. Okay, so let me, so before it was queued, now it is processing. Okay, so you see the status is being changed with the help of the webhook which we have set, and that will be reflecting here the model status. Okay, so let's wait till this model gets trained. And again for your info, the images that I have uploaded are not at all valid and proper ones. Okay, just for showcasing I uploaded them, but while you are training, please upload the images of yourself or whomever it want to be, and see that you are covering the variations that we have tried to recommend. Okay, so that the whenever you use a prompt and generate image, it will be close to whatever you are expecting. Okay, so the better images that we feed in, the better generated image that you can expect. Okay, yep. So head back to our thing. So here the studio is grading, okay, and spinning custom model, the text is seeing, and if you go and see the percentage of the completion, 76. Let's hold on, 22% more to complete training. 16 more percentage to complete our training. %12 more. So it will take just a few more minutes. Okay, so here as soon as this gets completed, we should see that our project is ready, and view my studio button should be visible in our project card component. Okay, let's see. Okay, yep. So if you go now, okay, let's wait for this to complete. So it has to complete 3000 training steps that we have configured. You see on the left section, that is my. So if you see here, the training is successfully completed and the view my studio button is visible. Okay, and going back to DB, so if I refresh this, model status should be marked as succeeded. Okay, so accordingly there was not an issue, just it took a few more minutes to reflect. Okay, via the webhook URL. Okay, then the reflection happened. And if you go to our project card section, okay, so if this is ready, so based on a ready param, okay, if you just check here, is ready, this is where view my studio button we showcased, and also this text should be seen here. Okay, there are 20 shots left. Okay, so you see here this many shots are left, and we now in the next video, on clicking this button, we should redirect to the particular studio or project page that we will be creating in the coming videos. And if you see here, the text that we wanted to see just above view my studio is not being displayed. So after having checked that, so going to the inspect tab and the network tab, so just refreshing. Okay, so here so if I see here projects API call response, there is a shorts with the empty array, so that is not becoming true, and that's the reason we are not seeing the content here, the whatever we wanted to see. So for that, so what I will do here is, if the length of the shorts array is what is 0, then we will showcase this. You don't have any prompted, go to your studio to add one. Okay, so now heading back to the browser, now you see, okay, you don't have any prompted, go to your studio to add one. So exactly that is what we wanted. So in the coming video, we will write a page which will redirect to after clicking on this view my studio button. Okay, thank you.